Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast, the Riverside Roundup. We're talking Middlesbrough football, but not just Middlesbrough football, there's other football. So, there's that. Join myself and the host himself, Mr. Williams, as we talk football, what's been going on in the last week, what happened in the games last week, and what we think is going to happen in the games coming up this week. If you're watching us on YouTube, do subscribe because it helps the channel. That's a big help all around. And if you're just listening to us, then subscribe on either iTunes or SoundCloud. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the Riverside Roundup. Boom shakalaka and we're off. So, just going a little wet of the whistle. Little whistle wetting. It's football time. It's not football time, it's time to talk about football. I'm here. The host with the most, Mr. Paul Williams, is also here to take us through the muddy waters that is football with the Riverside Roundup, talking Middlesbrough and other such footballs. Are you starting to find an intro? Because I don't know, can we recycle the intro? Try it out.
What do you mean?
Go on. Try using the old intro, but with the new name. See how it feels. Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to this show that, well, as the first couple of weeks of show, never ends. It might go on, holiday for a week or so. It might, have a little break just to sort of, recharge its batteries. But generally, it'll stay around, and that is the Riverside Roundup.
I can't wait for the week where you go on holiday and I have to get a guest presenter in.
You just have to sort of put an advert out at work and just say, "Wanted Borough fan, please."
So it'll be Lewis then.
Hey, he knows his stuff. That kid.
I'll tell you, get him on. Guest supporter. Tell you all about it.
We'll see what happens.
The doors are firmly open to guests. So yeah. As is the way of things on the football flavoured podcast. We like to find out if we've missed anything since we last convened in a segment that we like to call This Week in Football. It's weird, isn't it? Because it's called This Week in Football, but we're always looking backwards. So it should maybe be called Last Week in Football, but then a lot of stuff happens like, number of times we've been like, oh, in the last 45 minutes, this has happened. Or sometimes we're like, well, we're just waiting for this game to finish so we can write the score down. So it's a bit... But it is a segment that has a name, and that name is This Week in Football. Mr. Williams, what can you tell us about This Week in Football?
Well, as I'm looking through the resource that is always handy, not a great deal. Not a lot. I mean, there is something that has been discussed today, which should in theory be very big. Now that is, I think we might have mentioned this a few weeks back, apparently, today, the Premier League has voted and has become the first competition to approve permanent concussion substitutes.
Ah, yes, we did discuss this.
So, I'll go through the full Sky Sports article, I suppose. Premier League becomes first competition to approve permanent concussion substitutes after shareholder vote on Wednesday. Teams given 2 concussion replacements in addition to their 3 regular subs in each game. Rule change is part of IFAB trial. The Premier League has voted to introduce permanent concussion substitute. Teams will be able to permanently substitute players who are diagnosed with or suspected of sustaining a concussion during a match once the trial is confirmed. There's no set date for implementation at this stage. Both sides in each game will have 2 such replacements available, as well as their 3 regular substitutions. So obviously it's just an idea at the moment, but it's obviously something that's there, and that they're really happy to bring it in. It's something that's probably been needed for the last 10, 15 years at least. I think it's a rule that they brought in cricket within the last 2 years, because that was another sport where if you were, so say for example, if you're designated as a bowler and you get injured in the game, you can have a replacement fielder that can come on and take your place, but he can't bowl. So now they have a situation where if you get a concussion and you're a bowler or a batsman, you can have a replacement player will come into the team and take your position and be able to either bat or bowl on your behalf. So they basically just become a replacement in the squad in the same section as you previously would. So like I say, it's something that's been needed in football for a long time.
In cricket, are those concussions mostly from cucumber sandwiches, or is it from drinking too much tea?
There we go. I knew it. As soon as I mentioned cricket, I knew you'd be on the offensive.
Is it just the people there, and they're literally slipping into the coma while they're stood there, and then they go, but they're stood up and they fall back and they bang their heads on the ground, and then that's it, concussion. If a coma wasn't bad enough, concussion protocol on top of it.
So there you go. So I think they're probably one of the last sports to implement it. This concussion ruling. So it's long overdue. But fingers crossed, it'll. You'd like to think that the Premier League will set a precedent, and the Football League will just fall in line with that.
You hope so, yeah.
Further down the pyramid, so hopefully it's something we'll see in the Football League before too long. Other than that, nothing much that I can think off the top of my head. Really, there's no
any hirings and firings.
Certainly not in the UK or in the Championship. No signings of note for Borough.
That was going to be my next question.
And they haven't sold anyone. So, been a bit quiet on the Western Front, so to speak.
As I always say, it's a quiet time of year anyway for pretty much everything. So, for stuff to be happening, it's unlikely, not impossible, I'm sure. But yeah, it's a generally a quiet time of year anyway.
Yeah. So there you go. That's basically this week in football.
There we go then.
Short and sweet.
What it does mean is that we're jumping straight over to the book then to talk about, obviously to talk about how much money we've won in the last week. To talk about how it is that the only time I don't pick people to score is absolutely the time that they are going to score. And to see how the predictions that we made for the last set of games panned out. So we're going way back in the book. It's at least a page away. And our first game to discuss is Middlesbrough versus Birmingham City. Now then, both you and I we were very much in the same mindset on this game. I believe this was one where I gave you the opportunity to go first or second. You chose to go first. I'd already made my picks. And in doing so, we ended up with not only the same score prediction, but one of the goal scorers was the same as well. Mr. Williams, how did that pan out for us?
The less said about this game, the better. Really. So, from on paper, a very comfortable home victory for Middlesbrough turned out to be anything but, sadly. And a thumping home win was reduced to a very unsatisfactory 1-0 away win for Birmingham, sadly. The goal scored by Scott Hogan, and just to rub things in even more, it was accompanied by a man of the match performance from ex-Middlesbrough player George Friend.
Wow.
What are you going to do? Just sticking the knife in old Georgie boy. But to give him credit, he didn't put a foot wrong all game. He was magnificent. More's the pity, obviously, his last couple of appearances for Borough weren't of a particularly high standard, sadly. And there was a picture which did the rounds on the Twitter and the social medias and stuff like that at the end of last season, where I can't remember who the last home game that Borough played against was. It might have been Cardiff. I think off the top of my head, I think that sounds about right. But they lost the game. Lost the game 1-0. I'm making up. It might not have been 1-0, but they certainly lost the game. And there was a picture of obviously the Riverside completely empty, as was the way, because it was during the pandemic. And there was just a picture of George sat on the bench, just basically looking sort of a bit forlorn, and as if to sort of say, the picture that painted 1,000 words, so to speak, but it just looks as if he was sort of like saying, well, it's not how I imagined my time at the Riverside would have ended. But yeah, great servant for the club. One annoying stat that did flash up was that he left the club on 299 games.
I mean,
that's annoying.
Yeah, they couldn't have squeezed one in somewhere. Got out for a friendly or something.
He left the club because they'd only offered him a 1-year extension to his contract, whereas Birmingham were offering him a 2-year deal. So, I think in all fairness, it probably was the right time for him to move on. He was a step slower than he'd been pretty much any other point during his career, which is obviously understandable because he's getting older. At the time, he was basically the club's only left back, really. He's since been replaced, obviously, with Mark Bowler, who they had signed last season, but he didn't really fit in to the shape and things like that. So he was sent out on loan. So it fell on George to be basically the only left back in the squad. I mean, we did have Hayden Coulson and Marvin Johnson at the time, but he was out and out the first choice left back. But yeah, he was offered a 2-year contract at Birmingham, more security for himself, more security for his family, so he was perfectly entitled to act upon that, and sadly his time at the Riv came to an end. So obviously he was back in familiar surroundings on Saturday and used it to his full advantage. So yeah, disappointing, 1-0 home defeat. First team to beat the Borough at home this season since Norwich. So watching it was live on Sky as well. Watching the game, you could just tell within the first sort of 20-25 minutes that the tempo just wasn't right. They hadn't really got it going at any point during the game, and watching it, there was more than one occasion where I just looked at it, just watching it, I was like, yeah, we are going to score today. And then as soon as Scott Hogan scored, you kind of knew it was game over. Be at the bar towards the end of the first half. That was really the closest it came to scoring. Made a couple of changes at half time. Britt came on for the second half. Had a really good chance to score just after the second half started, but managed to spurn that and put it wide. And then the game just sort of petered out, really. So, disappointing.
I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? It's a shame. Shame to have a loss. So, moving on up, moving on down. We've got a blast from the past in our next game.
It's the format change, isn't it?
Yeah. So, all the way back in the first episode of the Riverside Roundup, we discussed giving Borough a bit more airtime, as it was solely a Middlesbrough-based podcast. And then the cogs started turning, and conversations were had about maybe adding in some other games to just round it out a little bit. Weirdly enough, at the point in time that we started, it just so happened that the game we picked to predict was Nottingham Forest versus Millwall. And the ghost of former presenters or hosts was in full effect. Looking at the score, it's like it was predicted from the past somehow. Mr. Williams, what was the score in the Forest Millwall game?
Well, like you've said, it's almost as if the previous co-host,
the previous occupant,
was very much in the room, which is weird because he didn't even support Millwall. So, but yeah, he gave him a goal anyway. So Nottingham Forest taking home all 3 points with 3 goals and a 3-1 home win.
Yes, I see here written down in my book that Amiobi had 2 of those 3, and Yates had the 3rd, and Thompson scored for Millwall. Now, do you know what? I had absolutely zero faith in Forest, which worked out well for me, because I predicted a 1-0 win for Millwall, and I didn't get the goal scorer, so you, sir, had more faith than I in the Forest boys, and you were so close to getting that score bang on. You went for a 2-1 win. Unfortunately, out of the 4 possible goals and the 3 possible goal scorers, none. You thought that Grabham was going to get back on form, or Teddy Bradshaw. So just 1 point there for you, I'm afraid. Speaking of Nottingham Forest, and speaking of Middlesbrough, if only there was a way that we could take those 2 teams and push them together in some kind of gladiatory fight to the death on a football field in like 90 minutes or something. Oh wait, there it is. So that's exactly what happened. The Forest boys took on the mighty Borough. I believe it was merely a couple of hours, an hour ago or something.
Well, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So
a mean time it was.
Exactly. To date the podcast horribly, kickoff was less than 3 hours ago. So.
Indeed. Can you tell me what the score in that game was?
Andrew, I can indeed tell you the score of that game. It finished Nottingham Forest 1, Middlesbrough 2.
Now, here's the thing. Because full-time podcast listeners, and by full-time I mean they're there, they're downloading every episode, they're getting involved in every YouTube video, and they're subscribing while they're there, know that at the same time on the same day, there's two podcasts released. There's the NFL podcast and there's the football podcast. And whilst the NFL podcast was being recorded, this man here was looking at 2 points out of this game, a minimum of 2 points. Because I could have got some goal scorers. Obviously I didn't, but we'll get to that. But no, the dirty Forest had to screw it up for me. Bitches. It was 2-1, unfortunately for me. Also unfortunately for you, but we'll get to that. I had a lot of faith in the Borough. 2-0, not to be. Do get a point for a win. You sat firmly on the fence. Little draw in your eyes. But here's where things get interesting. So I was saying before, I only like to pick people to score goals when they're not going to score goals. And then I like to flip it on its head and not pick them when they do score goals. So the 1 week where I'm like, it's not Brit's time, Chubba's going to get the goal this week. And has anybody ever seen me not put Hogan down to score for Birmingham City? Who scored all of the goals, Mr. Williams? Go.
Well, the scoring was opened by Nottingham Forest striker Brit Assombalonga. Now, it's the first time that he scored in
4. More.
The first time he scored against him in 8 attempts. So all he needed was just no fans to be in the stadium, and he would get his goal.
Get it done.
Yeah, so it was an opener for Brit Assombalonga. Middlesbrough then took a commanding 2-goal lead when George Saville popped up in what can only be described as acres of space to smash in the second one. Watching it on the Sky Sports News feed, I was a bit annoyed because it would have been right in front of the away supporters, that second goal, so it would have been going, what's the phrase, batshit crazy and all that. So coasting, nice and easy, cruising at 2-0, then in the 93rd minute, the hammer comes down and we're in for a nervous last 5. And it was MB So who notched a goal for the Forest boys.
Rubbish. So yeah, what's interesting there is I took a point for getting a winning score for the Borough, but somebody did pick Saville to score, so there's a point for you as well. Everybody gets points. Anybody who's got a great memory at this point in time will cast their mind back and think, hang on a minute, pretty sure there was another game predicted. Pretty sure you boys had a lot of predictions around Blackburn Rovers versus Swansea City. And you'd be right. You have a great memory. Unfortunately, as I can hear it right now, it is absolutely weeing it down. And what that means is that the match was postponed due to a waterlogged pitch. So we've got some peas in the book. What that means is no surprises here. Mr. Williams, your combined number of points for the week is 2. Just 1 point for me. So you've won the week. But as is the way with these things, those games, they're in the past. They're done. There's nothing we can do to change those scores. But these games are in the future. And we can predict some new games. Now then, there was a little bit of an issue, which I'm sure my learned colleague will cover off when picking games to predict, because obviously it's very easy when you go, what's Borough's next game? Just write that down. But then when you go in on our system of picking other teams to predict, it gets a little muddy when those teams don't play. So, let's talk about the first game. And the first game is one of the postponed teams going up against the mighty Borough. Middlesbrough versus Blackburn Rovers. As is the way, I have already written a prediction in the book. Whether it's right, who knows? So, would you like to go first or second?
Well, Andrew, I will go first.
Do it.
And I will set the pace, shall we say.
You're the pace car, let's do that.
So, Middlesbrough versus Blackburn Rovers, you say. It's a game live on Sky. Not that will mean anything. But I will go for a 2-0 Middlesbrough home win.
Yeah? Sounds familiar, that prediction. Who's scoring them there goals?
I think Britt will continue his run of form.
Yeah?
And Whatmore will get the second.
Brilliant. I could have literally just gone all the way along there, because anybody want to guess what my prediction on this one is? Is it a 2-0 Middlesbrough win? Is it... You see, I've gone the other way around. I've gone Whatmore and Brits on block and get to score.
Well, that'll be the tiebreaker.
Absolutely.
Depending on which way the scorers go.
So, we've got other games that don't involve Middlesbrough.
Correct.
The game that we... Go on.
Well, I was going to say, as we discussed last week, the format we're adopting moving forward is that we will take the team that Borough are due to play in their next game. So therefore, we'll do a little bit of a prediction, and that gives us, in theory, a little bit of form to then guide us in our next prediction for the next game. However, Rotherham managed to get themselves dumped out of the FA Cup in the third round. Classic. And they do not have a fixture this weekend that we could find anyway.
No, they don't.
Therefore, Rotherham game doesn't exist, can't be picked. So, we have adopted the Stuart Woodmansey principle, which was given to me on the text by Mr. Woodmansey the other day.
Indeed, it was.
In which, because Middlesbrough were knocked out of the FA Cup by Brentford, we will pick up the Brentford game in the FA Cup, and then the winner of the tie will then provide a fixture, potentially, the next time there's a game lull, or to say if we get to FA Cup 5th round, and Leicester have gone through, for example, on a weekend where the Borough don't have a game, or the next opponent for Borough doesn't have a game, we will pick up once again and we'll do the same with them. We'll do the Leicester game or the Brentford game in place of the next pick.
Love it.
As it stands, I will take Brentford 1, Leicester 3 as my prediction.
Okay. Who's scoring them goals?
Now this is where I'm going to need to do a little bit of digging, because I did see tonight that in the Brentford game earlier with Luton, there was a couple of cards. There was a red card for Even Tony.
No.
He will miss the next game.
No.
I believe. So you might want to change that book, Andrew.
Oh, I'm not happy about that.
I will go with Sergi Canos to score.
Canos.
And then for Leicester, I will have Maddison, Barnes, and Vardy. And if you want the bet, Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
Middlesbrough 2-0 is 10-1. Leicester 3-1 is 12-1. Giving me a double of 142-1.
Wowzer. I like that. I've gone more than a little bit the other way on this game. I absolutely can't use my goal scorer, that's for sure. I went with a Brentford 2-1. So I had to flip it on its head. I had actually gone for Tony to score both of the Brentford goals. So yeah. Who's going to be back? Who's going to be scoring them goals then?
Can't help you, mate. Can't help you.
I was looking back through the book, and every time Brentford comes up, it's like Tony. In fact, there's a week from the previous podcast. Oh, let me see. Yeah. In fact, it was Nottingham Forest versus Brentford that just shows Tony. And I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the other one is your one, so I'll just have to go with that because I'm getting nothing from the book. For both, fuck it, and Vardy for the Leicester goal.
Very nice. So your bet,
Yes.
obviously Middlesbrough 2-0 again is 10-1. Brentford 2-1 is 14-1, giving you, Andrew, a double of 164-1.
It'll be making it rain if that comes in. So we've predicted their games. Let's now double back to talk Middlesbrough football. And as we were saying, talking about Rotherham not getting a game, well, in actual fact, they're getting a game right now. Going up against Middlesbrough. Let me tell you what I see here, so that you can get a taste for things to come. I've gone with a 1-0 Middlesbrough victory. I've gone with Chuba to score. There you go.
I like it. I'm gonna go big.
It's 3-1. 3-1.
I'm gonna go 4-0.
Wow.
4-0. Brick.
Hat trick, yeah.
Just a 2.
2.
Just 2.
Okay.
Tab.
Yeah, absolutely.
stick me down for Marvin Johnson.
Ooh, blast from the past. Okay, well there's some big numbers right there. I'd love to see what the bookmakers have for that one, but that is not.
Sadly, I can't do you any bets because it's not in there. It's not in there for next week, sadly.
And I'm guessing if that game's not in there, this one definitely won't be. Our last prediction, it's nothing to do with Middlesbrough, but it is to do with two teams that have already been mentioned this evening. Swansea City taking on Brentford. Again, I will tell you what I've gone with and see, this is where we get to play, does this player actually play for the team? So I've gone with a 0-1 to Brentford. De Silva.
Don't think there's any problem with that. I believe he's still there.
There you go. So whether I win points from this game or not, I've won a moral victory in being able to pick somebody that still plays for that team. I may have spoken too soon.
Oh no, yeah, he's still there.
Ah, there we go.
He's still there. That's fine.
You had me worried for a second.
So, I will go with 1-1.
Okay.
I will have Lowe to score for Swansea.
Low.
I think Tony might be back from his suspension, so I'll go for Tony.
Well, there we go. That, and in fact this, signifies the end of said predictions. And, yeah, that's what we think is going to happen in these here games. So, this is one where I need to do the kind of the Ace Ventura inhalation of if you think you can take us on in the predictions, feel free to contact us via Twitter, Instagram, email, any of that. You can get it all from the website, cookiecast.com. If you're like, do you know what? I reckon my team is good enough to get on the Riverside Roundup, and you want to put your team up against what Middlesbrough's going to do over the next week, couple of weeks, month, get a little bit of friendly competition going, seeing what your team does versus what Middlesbrough does, get a little bit of a table going. If you want to put your team up against Middlesbrough, make it real interesting, maybe get a little bit of money on the side, wink wink, nudge nudge, say no more, drop us a little line. Do that through Twitter, Instagram, email, carrier pigeon, postcard, smoke signal, or just scream at the screen and we will hear you, sir. Or indeed, madam, we are an equal opportunity podcast. Now then, the final part of the podcast is where we talk about like business of any kind, also known as any other business.
No, there actually isn't.
No.
Not a bean. Not a bean.
Nothing. Well, there we go. That is, as they say in the business, that is that. Good luck to you and your team, sir. Good luck to me and my team. And this is my team. I'm Team Riverside Roundup. I'm going to get a t-shirt made up and everything. Get a scarf. One of them.
Clackers?
Yeah, with the name down the side. Or something like where you spin it and it makes the word. That'd be a good one. Merchandise, innit? That's the next step. Hats,
like
t-shirts, scarves. Wear them at the game. Well, thank you, sir, for steering this ship through these muddy waters, and until what is almost definitely this time next week, I'll say thank you very much, and I'll see you then. Goodbye. So there you go. What do you think to that? Another one done. It's going well. We're getting a format going. It's running smooth. I like it. YouTube watchers, if you could subscribe, it'd be amazing. Be a big help. And if you're just listening to us, then subscribe on either iTunes or SoundCloud. Everybody should jump over to thecookiecast.com. There's ways of getting in touch with us, whether it's social media or you can drop us an email. So that's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.